I've done a stickman punch animation at 5 different levels: beginner, normal, skilled, professional, and master. Let's see how that went. Drawing this as a beginner was more challenging than I thought. I tried it multiple times because the result didn't look like a beginner. Beginner animators' stickman always has arms and legs without any joints. They justify the name stickman really well. Also, beginner stickman occupies all the available vertical screen. This is because they aren't familiar with the application and cannot predict what the results could look like. Here the punch looks like a tickle. I added the base here to stand the stickman. Stickman punches the other stickman and he falls on the ground. That was the idea. As I was animating at a normal level, I realized that onion skin is quite useful for drawing the frames. Also, I could draw in between frames rather than just drawing straight. I also use tools like the lasso tool to copy and paste stickman, rather than redrawing. At last, I added some impact lines to add some feel to it. This looks more like a push than a punch. As a skilled artist, the first thing that came to my mind was to use a red stickman. I also added a basic background like blue for the sky and green for the floor. I used anticipation here, which is a key aspect of an animation. Red punches the black stickman and sends it flying away. Here I animated the body of the stickman first, and then I added the heads. Because of this, you can avoid placing the head in the same layer, and it becomes easier to adjust it according to the movement of the stickman. The black stickman flies and hits the rock and falls on the ground. I placed every object on its own layer. Like black stickman and red stickman have their own layer and both heads are on different layers. Here I added the cracking effect on the rock. This underlines the power of the punch. After adding the sound, our animation was ready. I thought I should have a mountain background here. Let me tell you that I am drawing as a professional or master doesn't mean that I am pro or master. It is just a presentation of the level from my perspective. I tried different types of brushes for the ground to create a texture. Here I didn't go into more detailed features because I wanted to focus more on the animation aspect of it. I used a calligraphy brush to draw the grass close to the camera. Also added the shading to the background mountain. Then I animated the grass in a different project, which I will use in the end. I choose a yellow and light blue colored stickman. They contrasted the background perfectly. For animation, I thought blue should attack yellow first. Yellow blocks the punches, then headbutts the blue and punches him into the ground. That was the whole idea. It is really important to have some idea about what you are going to do. There is no need to storyboard the animation, because it is a short-length animation. After a headbutt, blue stickman gets pushed behind. Then I started adding the yellow punch, for which he will take one step and jump in the air and throw a powerful punch. With that, I also added the heads. After the yellow's punch, blue gets inside the ground. I animated the ground cracking effects to show the power of the punch. I added some slow motion effects in the editing software and added the animated grass above all, and our animation was ready. Here I thought I should create a background that suits the duel fight scene. For that, I took inspiration from a mobile video game. I added a house roof as a base to stand our Stickman. I used traditional Japanese houses in the background as it was in the reference. I drew this background in multiple layers and placed the houses in different layers. I also added the bridge in the far background. As it was going to be nighttime, I thought to use dark colors here. I colored lighter as I went far from front houses. For the sky, I tried different colors. Initially, I thought it should be nighttime, but I thought dusk time would be perfect. After adding the lights in the houses, the background was looking pretty good. After completing the background, I started the animation with a red and sky blue Stickman. They were standing on the rooftop and ready for the punch. Red charges forward to throw a punch. Blue runs towards red but gets punched. Here I thought of using the smear frames. While adding the smear frames, I decided to make it as a super speed or teleport effect, so I added the strokes for that effect. After getting punched, the soul of the blue Stickman rips apart from the body. I took this idea from the first Doctor Strange movie. I also used this effect in my first water versus fire video. After the soul of the blue gets separated, the surrounding starts to fade away, and only the soul of the blue remains. Here I used new features of the flipaclip, which are smudge and blur. Using them, I wanted to create an effect of a blue Stickman falling in a different dimension. After that, I added the second project. Here I changed the view to the top of the blue Stickman soul so we could see him falling into a well-like hollow space. To do that, I used the ruler tool to draw the perspective lines. I also drew the blue Stickman in reference to the perspective lines. I also moved the perspective lines from the center to the right side, so we get a different view of the falling Stickman. Now to show the falling effect, I used airbrush strokes. I drew them like they were coming from the center point towards the Stickman. As they reach towards the surface, their size increases. Using the onion skin, I animated them in different colors. After animating it for a couple of seconds, I thought to add a spinning effect to the hollow space. For that, I drew the 4 columns coming out of the point. Then I selected and shrunk their size and extended the columns. Then again copied those extended columns and I started rotating them for a few degrees for each frame so they could create a rotating effect. Even after that, I added some more airbrush strokes coming out of the center with those rotating columns. Now it was time to connect the body of the blue to its soul. I animated the background with different strokes and with a smudge effect, so that in the end it would match the background that we drew first. But this time the whole place is on fire. Then I started animating the end of our animation where Blue tries to run away from this situation, which he didn't understand at all. But he could not escape from the sorcery of our red Stickman. After adding the red Stickman, adjusting few frames and making some corrections, our animation was ready.